New Aphotic Realm announcement. Submission windows for upcoming issues. Issue 10, the theme is justice. That's hard-boiled fiction with a supernatural twist. The deadline for that will be April 1st, 2020. Issue 11, the theme is kaiju, giant monsters terrorizing civilization. Deadline will be October 1st, 2020 for those stories. Issue 12, the theme is lycanthropy, which is, of course, self-explanatory. It can be any type of animorph with a bloody twist. So I guess that's werewolves and giant, I don't know. What do people turn into? Seals? I've just got a little seal on my desk, so I thought of that. I don't know. You'll have to be more imaginative than I just was. But the deadline for lycanthropy, January 1st, 2021. Good luck to everyone submitting.
I wrote this thing. I hope you like it. Let's talk about it, yeah. Let's lose track. Losing the Plot Podcast. Losing the Plot Podcast. Losing the Plot Podcast. Talking to Leo.
My guest this episode is Sam Crichton. He's an actor in the Stavanger Filmmakers Club. Acting, for me, it's been recent to consider it as a way of being creative, and so I wanted to know more about it, and I thought it would be interesting to my audience as well. So I hope you enjoy. If you are a reader, writer, editor, listener, any kind of creative, if you want to get in touch and tell me anything at all, you can always do so using losingtheplotpodcast-at-gmail-dot-com, and I look forward to hearing from you. But that's all for me for the moment, so here is my chat with Sam. When did you start acting?
I started acting in Houston when I lived in Houston, Texas in like 2017. And it was literally just on the whim of one of my friends who told me, why don't you just try and rehearse? Actually, I'd rehearsed the year before. I'd gone to the auditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get in because I was on the football team or something. So I couldn't guarantee that I was going to the rehearsals. And then the year after, I went to auditions again. And then I got in and I got a role and I loved it and I haven't stopped.
Yeah. And like these acting workshops that you've been to, were they at school or?
So in terms of acting workshops, I didn't do any in Houston. So most like where I really, really got into acting and sort of fell in love with it was in Cheltenham at boarding school. Mm-hmm. These amazing teachers and everything was just really chill, and it was sort of the one subject where I really relaxed and had fun out of all my other A-levels. And there, like, we would go to trips to Stratford-upon-Avon because that was really close. Not Stratford-upon-Avon, just Stratford. Or is it Stratford-upon-Avon? I can't remember. But wherever Shakespeare...
I think it's the same. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is. And we would go there to the Swan Theatre and go and see plays at the Royal Shakespeare Company. Just plays. And that was just amazing because I'd never really seen proper plays before. So it's amazing seeing actors at the RSC, just half an hour drive, 40 minutes drive from Cheltenham. And then there we'd also do workshops in Stratford. And that's where the workshop started as well. And then we also had a couple of workshops at school and in lesson because I took theatre studies. So it was all there.
Did you see anything at the Globe? Is that RSC is there?
No, I've never been to the Globe. I've never been. I need to go. And I need to go to the National Theatre as well. I've been there for like a round tour. And it's the Lawrence Olivier is the one who helped set it up and make the theatre and everything, and that was amazing. And we saw a live screening from that came to Cheltenham of George III, and that just looked amazing at the National Theatre. So that sort of really motivated me to think of going. Now, I might have gone this summer, but now that's a bit.
Hey, what's going to happen with the Fringe?
Yeah, I don't know. No. I really hope it's going on. But then there's another complication: is if I get into my Dutch university, it starts on the 1st of September, and the Fringe ends on the 31st. So that would be quite interesting.
You're just not there for the first month of uni.
Exactly. But it might not even be on. The first month of uni might just be off. But yeah, with the Fringe, we don't know yet. Hopefully, that'll keep going. So yeah, but I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know what we're going to do yet. We haven't been given any scripts or anything, and the lady who runs it is still thinking about things and organising stuff and getting the cast together. But I'm definitely going to go if it's on. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I edit this later, so we can ramble about anything. It's not like live or anything. Yeah. I always have to. I always ask a question, and then somebody's like, "I don't know about that," and I'm like, "All right, cool, next question." So
yeah. No,
go for it.
Yeah, go on.
No, like people are always just like, "Wow, you're such like a natural like conversationalist," and I'm like, "Yeah, because I get to cut all the awkward shit." Yeah,
it's perfect. No, actually, yesterday when we were talking about all that stuff for the filming, doing the Skype film for the filmmaking group, that was so interesting. That was so cool.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
I think so, at some stage, some people, it was like me, you, and the French lad.
Yeah, Raphael.
Who were like going really deep, and then the other people were like, okay. It was quite funny.
Yeah. Especially because it was like his first time as well, and he was just like, right, we're going to do this, 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 and you're like, all right, nice to meet you.
Yeah. It's great.
It's cool though. It just shows you like how many people have like their own film ideas in their head that they would like to do if you just said, I give you permission to do it. And then also, why are they waiting for like some random guy to give them permission to do this thing they want to do, you know? So
yeah, it's an interesting one. It's like I don't know, maybe creativity is frowned upon. No, it's not really. It's people are just like, oh, I don't have the time for it. That's always it's the same answer. Same with me though, and especially with technology. I mean, I used to make everything with my hands. I did Airfix for a very long time. Do you know what Airfix is? It's like the model airplanes where you have to like put it together, glue it together, and then paint it all and like make it look realistic. So you had like dam buster bombers and Spitfires and all that kind of thing I used to make. And I used to like do lots of arts and crafts, or just make lots of random things, just work with my hands, rather than what I do now, which is basically, I mean, gaming isn't that bad, but just on my phone all the time, or just doing stuff that means I'm not being creative. And then it's the same with they say like being bored. People aren't bored enough today. Everyone's always got to do, which is like the enemy of creativity. And that's really sad. It's like why we don't get any of these, I don't know, it depends. But what we perceive as creative geniuses like Mozart or anything. Or, I don't know, people who, even Prince, we don't really have someone like Prince who can now, I don't know how many instruments he could play, but he was incredible. And just, I find it sad that technology, for everything that it does that's good, it's also takes away from creativity.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. And also the idea that like unless you're going to I think it's a very common uh belief that we see even in the club is like unless you're going to be the very top, don't bother. It's like, all right, that's like 1% or less of people are
Exactly. And it needs to be like, maybe it can be a joke. It can be like, yeah, like we joke about it sometimes. Yeah, the aim is getting Oscars and shit like that. But if it keeps going, you never know. Like, it might not be a joke in the end of it, and it's like the fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yeah. But also, like, how do you think you're going to go over there? It's like some people tell me, I'm like, oh, it sounds like you're really interested in writing. Why don't you start writing? And they're like, oh, I did. I wasn't any good at it. And I was like, all right, did you ever try to play anything on the piano? Were you any good at that? No, because you have to do it more than one day. You don't sit down and like put your fingers on it and go, well, I'm not a born pianist. You're like, nobody is. Like,
Yeah. And
I
that's
don't know.
what I think. That's another thing with like technology today. Instant gratification is such a big thing. People live off instant gratification, likes, comments, tweets, retweets, or views, everything like that. I try to stay away from it because I don't want to be like, I post once in a while, yeah, and it's nice to get likes. I agree, but I try not to put anything online because otherwise, you get addicted to trying to get likes and things like that.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, I'm like impressed by your social media composure and stuff because sometimes I send you a message and then I'm like, why hasn't he got it yet? And then it's like, because I've been there like 5 times a day just pressing refresh and you've been like doing something important and obviously not seen it yet.
Yeah, no, and like
So,
half the time it's not on my phone, or I'm playing computer games on some other device.
It's not necessarily productive.
No, exactly. Definitely not productive half the time. But
yeah,
it's I think it's harder for people, I think kids as well, to sort of realize, it sounds so cliche, but it's like the harder you work at something. Yeah, no, it's with instant gratification, it's harder to appreciate that if you really work for something, it's much more satisfying at the end of it than like any 1,000 likes it's going to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that sense of like, I think it gets easier with time. Like, I think by the time you get to my age, like, but I think like if you've tried stuff that, if you try, I think, but I do think that like by the time you get in your 30s, you've tried a bunch of stuff that doesn't work for long enough to just be like, I'm not doing that anymore. I know it doesn't work. But there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of with that instant gratification stuff. Like, God, why aren't these likes making me feel good? Maybe you have to do that for a few years before you go, no, this is just not going to work for me. So I do think that there's something compelling about the arts that keeps people doing it, like well into their 80s, still writing books, still like Clint Eastwood made a film and he's like 91 or something. So I think people do come around to it.
Yeah, artist, she's obsessed with like these artists who become famous when they're like 78 or something. They've been going at it their whole lives, and then when they're 78, they suddenly get noticed. That's a long time to wait. I mean, you have like Billie Eilish, who's 16, and she's already superstar, crazy.
Yeah.
Level. I mean, that respect. That's amazing. She's that's incredible what she's done. But it's also great when you have
she's the odd one out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like when we did your acting workshop, like it was really fun.
Yeah.
So success, great. Yeah.
Yeah. I loved doing that. I was nervous. I was like, wait, what do I do? I almost texted my the director from the last couple of shows I've done, the lady who was at school in Cheltenham. I was like, what should I do for a workshop again? And then I did it online, looked at a few things and refreshed my memory on what I'd done before. And yeah, it's just about getting people comfortable, because often it's like, even I've done workshops where I'm like, I don't really want to do that, but when everyone's doing it, it's fine. You'll have times when you're running around and you have to pretend to run around like a tree, and you have to really think about it. And it's just all these weird things that get you out of your comfort zone. That's what actually brought me to acting, because I used to be so like nervous about everything. I'm still a bit nervous when I go on stage. I think that, but that's normal. But I'm like, I would get so anxious about doing anything or talking to people, and shy. I used to be so shy. And then, I saw some of my friends who were quite shy, but then when they got on stage, this also the girl who got me into acting, she's quite shy, but then when she gets on stage, she's completely different, and it just looks so freeing. So I was like, yeah, I've got to get a bit of that. And then I got into it. I got this really small, I got not a small role, but it was like a role. I was part of the ensemble, and I had a role as Monsieur Dark in Beauty and the Beast, the musical. And he had a song. He had a funny song. And I remember just being so into it. It was just honestly one of the best experiences ever. That's what really got me into it. That first musical, Beauty and the Beast. And I got not hate from my mates, but you get that teasing like, oh, he's in a musical, look at him. But it was so worth it.
As part of something I was writing recently, I started researching this woman, Marina Abramovic. Do you know her? She's a performance artist.
No, I haven't heard of her.
Well, she does these crazy things. The one that I remember her talking about, she did this performance where she stuck like her hand on the floor, and it was doing the knife game where you go like that between your fingers. Yeah. And she just did that, and she'd do it with, she had like 10 or 15 different knives, and she'd do it until she stabbed her hand, and then she'd just grab a different knife, and she went through all of them. And she said like she does worse stuff than that as well. It's absolutely wild.
It's mental.
Yeah, she's in her 70s now, and so she'd written like her memoir about it. And she said like, it was this performance she was doing with a knife, and she was like, right up until I think she was due to start at say 2 p.m. or something. She was like 1:58, 1:59. She was terrified, like can't do it. Like I don't want to do this. This is awful. Why am I here? And then 2 o'clock hits, and she's like, right, I'm doing it. And then she's just in a different headspace. And that's a woman who's like dedicated her life to doing some crazy outrageous shit, and she's still saying like that she gets nervous before doing it.
Yeah, I think nerves are good as well, because it gets your blood pumping before you go on stage. One of the lads who's a really, really good actor at my school that I went to in Cheltenham, he's called Jack, and he would do push-ups before he went on, like just to get him, get in the zone. Yeah, that was impressive. And like, I haven't ever really had a role yet where I've had to learn like a huge amount of lines. That's still a challenge that I need to overcome. Like these guys at the school I went to had been acting for a while. They're almost in every scene. That is tough. I remember when we did 1984. There's this other lad, and he had to do a torture scene, and the torture scene was about 30 minutes or something ridiculous like that, and he held the performance so well. And this is when we took it to Edinburgh as well, and he was so tired in the evening. He was going to bed at like 7, getting up at, I don't know, 8 or something. But yeah, it takes it out of you. Acting does. It really takes it out of you. Because it is almost, it's difficult. You have to try and, I remember we did sort of the difference between real emotion and then emotion when you're on stage. And like you have Stanislavski, one of his techniques was emotion memory, where you literally try and reenact some difficult event in your life, either or it could be amazing, but just like a heightened emotion. And usually it's like a sad or bad memory, and you reenact it. But that can be quite dangerous because you can get really into it. And then there's like a fine line between that and acting. And I was watching this film like a couple of weeks ago, where this guy was trying to explain that his pet peeve with acting, and like this thing that he always sees, is when someone walks into a room and they have to try and be surprised of this person. It's like, I don't know, he walks in, he's like, "Oh, I didn't expect to see you here today." It's difficult to make that realistic. It's much more realistic if you go, "I didn't expect you to see it. Didn't expect to see you here today," or just walk in and look at him for a second, and it's you. Like, he's surprised, but then you also have to actually be surprised. Like, dim it down, but also he was saying, like, be surprised, like have the emotion of surprise as you walk into the room. Don't just try and look surprised or sound surprised. Actually be surprised. And he said that's acting. So
yeah, because I think that people think that it would have to look like theatrical or heightened, like you say, but I think that if you're just embodying something, you don't necessarily need to do much, as long as you trust that it's in your face and you trust that an audience can see that.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I mean, it's also difficult when like I found out with it's quite different filming compared with being on stage. With filming, every little thing you do is picked up on, whereas on stage you have to kind of project, because you can't really see that your left eye is moving, or that your eyes are quickly flitting between two characters. It's very difficult for the audience in the back row to see that. So you have to overplay a bit when you're on stage. Yeah, I still don't know that much. I'm learning all the time, and that's what I love about it. It's like it's fun and learning at the same time. I mean, no one ever stops learning with most things anyway, but it's like I've done other things longer than I've done acting, so it's like nice to. There's a lot of basics that I still need to learn, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, like you say, like you're never done learning. You just kind of show up and start. But I was talking even last week to a writer as well, who was like, "Oh, I don't think it's ever gonna work out for me. Like, I've written this many words, and like I'm not getting published here, there, and everywhere yet." And I was like, "Well, okay, if you want a better chance of getting published in cool places, write today and study some stories today, and then do the same thing tomorrow." Like, you would be doing that whether or not you got top publications or not. So I don't really see why people should be so concerned with that anyway. You know, or, like, I respect people who've just started being creative as much as people who've been doing it for 10 years. They've just because they still do the same thing. Like, they wake up, it's tough, they want to play video games instead of being creative, then they are creative, and then it's satisfying, and then they're better at it than they were yesterday. You know, I've come around to thinking that the process is really far more important, and enjoying the process is the most important thing. Otherwise, do something else, you know.
But exactly.
I get the feeling that you already had that impression, like, because I think we talked about it and you said you have a distrust of people who talk about there being like rules and solutions.
Yeah. I find that
I do too. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who don't like it when there isn't like a solid 100% conclusive answer. And I get that. When you're sort of when it's like you don't want any of those fluffy answers. Or at least that's what I've heard from other people. They're like, "Oh, that's why I don't like English, because there's like 10 different answers that can be right." But I think that's the opposite for me. When you know something, why are you bothering to work it out in the first place? And great, we need engineers and mathematicians, but that's not really me. And I took maths at A level, and that was rough. And physics, to be fair, was quite tough. And I know I could have done better, and that's sort of because I didn't really put the effort I should have put into it, because I wasn't enjoying it as much as like theatre studies, Dutch, and design technology. So, and that's where I got the best grades, those other 3 subjects that I enjoyed the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and another thing with it's not, I don't know if it's a distrust. It's just, I used to have like conversations with some of my mates who took maths, and it's like, maths will make you much more successful than anything else. And I disagree, and I kind of see what they're getting at. I think maths it can help you with lots of things, like thinking through problems. It can help, and I'm glad I did maths, so it helps me think things through sometimes, I guess. But then there's so much pointless stuff that you learn, so much abstract maths that just, like, you have abstract art which you can interpret, and then you have abstract maths which just has a number at the end that doesn't mean anything. Or is it abstract maths? Or it's just numbers. It's just numbers. That's all it is. It's so demoralizing.
Well, I find that interesting that people are saying like maths will make you successful. It's like, well, define success. Because if you're going to, the whole point of like,
it's monetary success. That's what they're talking about.
That could be the biggest failure of all. You never know.
Exactly. Yeah. And so many people with acting, for example, have said, even some teachers who have taught acting, who said, don't go into acting because you end up living in a caravan somewhere with no money as an actor. And it's like, you have to think through, would you rather be an actor and love what you're doing but live in a caravan than have all the money in the world, live in like a mansion but hate your job? That's like 5% of the time that you're having fun, and then 95% of the time that you're not having fun.
But I think it also depends where you're living. Like, I was listening to this interview with a woman who is like an actress, director, writer now, but she took a job with Goldman Sachs, like the investment bank. So she was like super rich, but doing this demoralizing number work. But she had to do it like 16 hours a day and like during the weekend and be available for clients in order to make all this money. And so then it like made her really sad. So she went to the doctor, and the doctor prescribed her antidepressants. And she was like, I don't want to take these. I just don't want to do this at all. And then she was like, she had a friend who was a director, and she went and acted with him and was like, right, I'm quitting and I'm going to do acting. Because she lives in America, and because she had one of those jobs that you have to do for 16 hours a day. But doesn't even have to be an all or nothing choice. Yeah. It's not, would you rather this or that? I mean, like with the thing that we're doing, we get plenty of practice, and I also do a full-time job. So it's not necessarily always like a this or that choice. You can still do many things.
It's about what you enjoy doing. And that's the thing. Also, another dilemma I have is I haven't done acting. The only experience I've had of acting as sort of semi-professional is the Edinburgh Fringe, and that's still it. Like, I mean, I thought it was amazing while I was doing it, but I've never really done it as a job or as a livelihood. And if it stops becoming a hobby or like a passion, and then it becomes like the be all and end all, and there's, at the moment and at school, like acting was my not break, but relax, and something that I really enjoyed and did to not wind down, but I just love being like intensely into it, because it just, I don't know, I guess it de-stressed me as well. And I love doing it. So it's also like I have a bit of the thinking of, if I make the decision to try and go professional, does it then become less enjoyable? I don't think it will, but it's like, we'll see when it comes there, and that's why I'm taking the degree first.
I think that's a great way to do it. But like, I've talked to so many creative people, like on my podcast. I've talked to so many writers, and I've read all the books and everything. And like, I hear things from all the time. I hear them tell me that like they were born to do it. They always knew they were going to do it. They put this many hours in every day. Like they read this many books. Like they, they're competitive. They're ambitious. Whatever. These things don't tell me how good a writer they are, or how successful they are. Whether or not they feel like they were born to do it or not, whether or not they're putting lots of time in or not, doesn't necessarily tell me that they're any good. And I think that the people who put in the time and the people who feel like they were born to do it like to perpetuate the myth that you have to feel that way if you're going to do it, because they want to crowd people out. They want to take ownership of it for themselves. And I think that's a mistake, and I don't see that it reflects the quality of the work that they do.
Yeah, it's like, the stereotype that if you're an actor, you've usually grown up poor and then had to work your way up, or you've grown up in a theatre, or that kind of. And it is true. Much more actors are like that. Like that is true. But there are also actors who were born privileged, I guess, as I am. I know that I'm really, really lucky of the way that I've grown up, and like, yeah, silver spoon fed. That is literally how it's been for me. And people like, and that's another thing when like writing songs as well, or like thinking of songs or thinking of things to write about. People like the story of struggle, or like the story of coming from nothing and like building your way up. And same with actors, I think. Sort of hard to think of like with songs, for example, I find it difficult to think of a narrative, because it's like, who wants to hear about this kid who's like grown up easy around the world? And it's also like a life that not many people can relate to, because I've lived in like 6 different countries before my 18th birthday. So it's like, it's difficult to think of what people would like. But then it's not, I guess that's not important. It's just about making what I like, and acting is what I like doing, and singing, writing whatever I want to write is what I like doing. So,
well, it's interesting that you say that, because I see you as somebody who can relate to like almost anyone as well. Like you instantly strike up a conversation with anyone who comes to our club, whether it be like Patrick, who's in his 60s, or I don't know, Natartan, who's always lived here in Stavanger or whatever. You're able to relate to them all.
Yeah, I definitely find it easy to talk to people like face to face, because there's no the best moment when I meet someone, you like, in any case, is like it's like as soon as I start talking to them and they start talking back. Like, that's the most interesting part, I find, like when you're starting a conversation with someone, or when you've just got to know someone. It's like, oh wow, this person's actually talking back to me. Sometimes you have people, like I try and have a chat, and for some reason they don't want to have a chat back, and that's fine. But it's really nice when you're talking to someone and they're talking back in the same sort of, maybe I'm very open, so it's quite easy, I think, to talk to me as well. And sometimes it can go like, people are taken aback by how open I am, but then it also works the other way around, where people are like, oh wow, it's not easy to talk to him. And I think it's so interesting to hear what people have to say about lots of things and have their opinions. Like, I think recently when I'd helped these artists, I was volunteering to help these artists with this art project at the gallery that I work at. And then at the end of the gallery opening, we all went for a drink. And there was this guy, one of the sponsors for the art project, he was there. And he was like very, I don't know, he had some strong opinions. but you know, he was still, and he, you know, he thought he was right about everything that he said, or not thought he was right. He sounded very convincing, but you know, and sometimes it's quite difficult to listen to those people, and some people just can't. Like I remember, like three of the adults just standing up, and then, no, I can't deal with this. But I find it really interesting to listen to people who have these really strong, and some people might say weird opinions. So trying to understand them, that's what I find interesting.
The amount of men in particular who've confidently told me something that's completely inaccurate, and like I've kind of known that it's inaccurate, but then they're so confident that they convince me. You're like, oh, I must be wrong. I go home and Google it, and I'm like,
yeah.
What the fuck? Like, why are you so confident?
Yeah, there's a quote about it, isn't there? It's like you have those people who you have like the two opposites. You have the people who are so confident but don't know what they're talking about, and then you have the people who are so insecure but actually do know what they're talking about. Excuse me. And you rarely have people who are in the middle.
Yeah. But again, I mean, confidence is not like, it's not an indicator that somebody knows more than somebody else. They just happen to be confident.
I have been guilty of doing it before, like in an argument, you know, like when I know that I sound more convincing than the other person. Sometimes I have been guilty of just popping that fact in there that's complete bollocks. getting the point across. Yeah, but it is annoying. It is very annoying.
Can get caught in the moment or something.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the other thing with like the fake news thing that Trump started, or maybe not started, but took advantage of. It's so strange. And it's difficult to know what to trust nowadays. So you have to read 5 different newspapers before you actually kind of have an idea of what the truth is, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's messed up. There was this, I remember going back to like creativity and technology, there was this art exhibition at Rogaland Kunst Center, which is where I work, and this guy, it was called In Between Fragments, and it was really, really cool. He'd taken these like samples of 5 different musicians playing their instrument. I think it was oboe, flute, viola, I think, or violin, can't remember, piano, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, bass. And he told them all, he gave them all instructions on how they should play a certain set of notes or a certain key, but he didn't tell them what order to play them in. And then he got all the samples, and he taught a computer, so artificial intelligence, how to make a note that sounded good from these samples that he'd taken. So during the exhibition, the computer was composing these notes as the exhibition went on. So every note that you heard every, 15 seconds was a new note composed by the computer, technically. And he'd also done some effects that made it look really cool. It was amazing to see, like, it was amazing to talk to him afterwards as well, because he said, you know, it's really easy now to go online and buy non-copyright, you know, free music without a copyright on it that's been composed by a computer, or that you can literally just press a button and it generates it for you. And it's like the argument of how do we make sure that we're still being creative without losing creativity and just letting the computer take it over. Oh yeah, that was just crazy. I think he's got it online. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah, sure.
Really cool.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of things like poetry created by robots and stuff, but
Yeah.
or artificial intelligence. But I think that they say that like the more the workforce becomes automated and so on, then the more that creative jobs will be,
Yeah.
in demand for humans because it's something that only we can really do. I kind of believe that.
Entertainment business will always be there.
Mm.
I think I might be I could be the last generation of where that being in the entertainment business isn't like a massive advantage. Like it could be where like acting is already insanely competitive. Imagine what it's like when no one can get a job anymore doing stuff that computers will be doing and machines. Everyone will be trying to get into the entertainment business. So I'm getting in there on time.
But I think that then, I don't know, I mean, there'll be all kinds of new jobs created in the future, but nobody really knows what they are also. And people won't have to do the kind of rote jobs that machines can do, and maybe it'll be a good thing. I really don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. It's interesting when I'm quite a big fan of Elon Musk, even if, he's quite controversial. I think he's sort of thinking in the right way. And especially his, I can't remember what the company's called. It's his AI company where it's making sure that AI is used safely and that it doesn't become like much faster than we are, so that we can still use it and like deal with it. Because I feel like there's so many problems nowadays to do with the fact that how fast technology is moving and how fast everything but us is evolving. Because we're still animals, right? We're not any different from like other animals that live around the world, and we don't evolve any quicker than them.
Yeah.
And now we're sort of trying to move at the same speed as computers and like data that's, I don't know, just insane. It's insane how fast everything is changing. And now you have and because of that, it's already shown that much more people are getting mental health issues because of it. And imagine when everything gets quicker, like computer chips are already fast, but there's stuff coming out, new methods of printing computer chips that's going to make everything another 10 times fast. And that, how are we going to deal with it? That could be interesting to see. And I think like mental illness will just keep going up for a while. Because of it, I don't know. It's just a thing that I thought about, but that I think it's quite arrogant at how fast we're going. Like it's almost too fast. And it's shown that we're also arrogant in the way that we look at the earth and use it and like exploit it. I mean, this coronavirus has come back and like sort of put us back in our place, like showing us now we're not these big people who are better than everything else on the earth. We're not better than the next ant, essentially. We're not. We just think we are. Yeah.
No, that's fair. I see all kinds of opinions on that, but I'm on the side of humans. Like, I want humans to win. I think we're all right. As a human, I feel like I want to represent us, and I think we're doing. I don't know. I'm on the side of humanity, despite having met a lot of people.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, obviously, I have to be on the side of the humans.
It's not obvious, though. I mean, some people aren't, but I feel it's important.
Yeah. But you have to be, because you have to hope that we can get better and become, like, I don't know, as good as the native Indians were to the natural world, maybe. That would be amazing.
I think that I think we still have a lot to learn. Like, there's stuff we didn't know until recently, and then the bigger these systems are, the slower they move. And, you know, this stuff takes time, and no, we don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers, but that's okay, because we're always coming up with new answers. So it's kind of what we do. So it's fine that we don't know the answer. And I think that, like, in a very small way, it's true of what we even do in the club. Like yesterday, like you say, the chat we had was fascinating. I had no idea it was going to be that, but like the creative process is showing up and just like saying stuff, but you don't know what you're going to say. You don't know what's going to come out of it. Like this year, I'm finishing a story. I just finished a story, and then I'm finishing another one recently. Neither of them I knew I was going to write until like a few weeks ago. And then I just became so interested in them that I spent all my time on them. And, you know, that gives me hope that those kind of answers are in people's heads all the time, all over the place, even if they don't know that they have those answers yet. So creativity, the creative process gives me hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously there's hope. It's just I think everything will be fine. I just think it's sort of, a lot of people don't even think about the fact that it might not be fine, what people are doing. And I think that's another thing. A lot of people don't want to think creatively. Oh, wait. Let's backtrack a bit. Maybe not. Don't want to think creatively. It's, you know, it's bliss, and it's very relaxing not to know what's going on in the world around you, kind of. Like, not to really look at the bad news and see what's going on, just to be focused on like what's going on in your sort of small personal life, and go out with your friends, do your job, have a family, do all these things, and just not worry about the other stuff. And like, I envy those people because they're just relaxed. They don't, you know, there's so many problems in the world that they're not thinking about. But
I think all those things are very difficult to do well. I think if you take on all those roles, you're going to majorly fuck some of them up in your life, like in ways
what
that.
What do you mean?
Like if you're. Well, I heard this really interesting quote. So I showed a clip of a film by Joe Swanberg, the one with Greta Gerwig in it, Hannah Takes the Stairs. I was listening to interviews with him, and they asked him, he does like all these films about just people who don't know what they're doing with their lives. And somebody asked him, like, there's so many superhero films, would you do a superhero film? And he said, well, my idea of a superhero is like, just like somebody who wants to be a really good friend. Because he says, like, you never achieve being a good friend. You just have to wake up and do it every day. And some days you're gonna completely mess it up. And a superhero, to me, this guy said, was somebody who wakes up the next day and goes, right, I'm gonna try it again. You know, I think that just trying to get through any kind of average human life can be insanely tough. And I think that if you are like a good partner, good brother, good at your job, you're pleasing like more people than you are, and you get a free pass from me personally. That's how I've come to feel over the years. And I think that like this coronavirus thing is very interesting because like there's so much pressure through social media and through the news and everything that everyone needs to be part of every narrative, when in fact there's so many different things that people are specialized at and good at that they should be focusing on. And so when it comes to this coronavirus thing, like it's being solved by people who work in the healthcare and who people are developing vaccines. And the message to most people is stay out the way while the people who know what they're doing do their job. And I think that in most global issues, that's the thing. I think that, you know, I've always felt very odd about how people are guilted into doing things by horrible news events. And I understand that works, and I understand why people feel they need to do it, but I'm against it personally. I think we don't know what people are going through, and I think that getting through an average life is a Herculean task in most instances. You know, whether you've had a lovely upbringing or not. In my opinion.
Fair. No, it is fair.
Because it's like you're young and you're going to university. Because I remember this, I got all these same messages of just like, you're the future, you're gonna like get into the world and change things, and like, You are, but like the more you feel empowered by that message, the more guilty you feel by stuff you're not doing, you know? And I don't know. It's just a conflict that we all live with, isn't it? I don't know the answer either.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. You can't solve everything by yourself, but I do think I don't know. Yeah, maybe like just living an average life is fine, not being bothered about everything else.
When it comes to like our club and the people we've met through, or the people that I meet through work, especially like men around my age can be very competitive with one another, and they're just like, "Where did you go to university?" Like, well, like. But the more somebody tells me that they're succeeding, the more I'm like, great. Like, if somebody tells me like, oh, I went to this university and like I've got this job, and they're obviously very proud of it, I'm like, fantastic for you. I'm so glad that you're succeeding at that. You know, I'm not against other people succeeding, and I think that you know, the more you see that people that there are other hardworking and intelligent people in the world, the more relieved you can be. I don't think it's naive or selfish to take the weight off yourself and be like, you know what, a lot of stuff will get solved by other people I haven't even met. You know,
Yeah,
of course it will. There's so many people on the planet, you know, and it doesn't take away from your own accomplishments either.
no, it's a very good point. I think for me, with the fine, like I agree. I don't think I was necessarily trying to point out that going through a life like just average is a problem. Like that's fine, but I think for me it's difficult having lived in so many different places. Like when I went to the UK, because I lived in so many different places, I kind of it sounds kind of arrogant to say that I kind of know what's a bit better what's going on because I've lived there, but it's kind of true. Like I've lived in these places. Like I lived in Malaysia, I lived in Houston, Texas, which is its own country. That's not America. It's its own country. But then Holland, UK, Norway, and like I find it difficult when I was like talking to people at my school in the UK who just lived there their whole life, and they sort of like it, and I was envious of them as well because they've lived in their whole life, they've known people their whole life, they've had mates for 15 years, the same mates. I don't know how that is, but also they're sort of living in a world a bit like this in some cases. Oh, I know, like obviously I went to a very nice boarding school, and these kids are very well educated and everything, but still there's like not a world view per se, and I find that quite difficult sometimes. Like when I'm talking to people, it's like they say things and it's sort of like, really, okay, fine, you know. But it's like what you were saying before with people being really confident about what they're saying about other places. Maybe like someone might say something about Asia, for example, or I've been around, and say something and like it's completely inaccurate, and that kind of thing annoys me. But like, do you know the phrase sort of like tunnel vision?
No, I mean I know exactly what blinkers or exactly.
Yeah, blinkers. But that's
I know
me.
exactly what
like
you're talking about.
It's really unfair to say because I've had this lucky experience of living in 6 different countries, and not many people get the chance to do that. So it's like an internal dilemma that I have.
I just read a quote today, actually. I'm reading this collection of letters written between 2 different authors that I like. One woman said, like, you're either like looking down from Everest and you're freezing and alone, or you're like in the field and it's warm, but you never go further than the sheep. So I think she says like you just accept that we are all a little bit isolated like that. And so I definitely feel like
I'm definitely on the top of Everest freezing.
Looking down at people, yeah. Smoking a
Oh.
little cigar. I feel like that.
Yeah, smoking a little something, depending on what.
But through acting, you found your people, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like what we just said is generally, obviously, it's a generalization. I'm very good at generalizations, but generally, actors just can talk and talk and talk and never stop talking. And I mean, it's also creative, just creative types. But because I love acting, you know, being in a cast as well is like one of the most unique experiences, and it's just one of the best things. Because you're all working towards the same goal, like together, and I don't know, it's like you're almost forced to become friends, but you don't have to be. You like actors generally. Sometimes you have someone who you don't get along with, but generally I've just got along with people, and that's what's so nice.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to actors, you tend to like people who do like, or you admire people who do extreme things to get into roles, right?
Yeah. I think, yeah, one of my favorite actors is Tom Hardy, and he does that all the time. Like with the way that he prepares for roles, I mean, insane amounts of work and graft. Just my camera. Yeah, I'm losing charge. Just turn the brightness down. But yeah, some people go through insane lengths to get what they want. Yeah, I think like Tom Hardy in his preparation for the role of Bane, a lot of people say that's where he became a good actor. I think Richard also mentioned, do you remember he said that that's where he sort of learned to act with his eyes, because he was wearing a mask through the whole performance. And he was forced to convey emotion literally just through his eyes. And that's where he learned a lot of skill, or gained a lot of skill through that movie. And the preparation he did for his movie where he was an MMA boxer, I forget the name of the film, but he put on insane amounts of weight. And then you have someone like Christian Bale, I think, who was almost anorexic for one of his roles. Yeah, that's amazing. I do think that kind of method acting does go a bit too far, though. In like with the, because Christian Bale, I think, has also played an obese character, and that can't be healthy. Like that's just a bit far. Yeah, I don't know. I think if I don't know who the actors that I admire. Is a good question. I mean, David Tennant. I really, really like David Tennant. So he was staged, and then he's done series like Doctor Who. He's done quite a few series. Well, I don't know. I can't remember what films he's been in.
Good question. No, I know. I know he was in Doctor Who for a long time.
Good Omens. That was really good.
One of the Harry Potter, or a few of them.
Oh, was he?
I think every British actor ever was in those films. So it doesn't really count.
Yeah, I love the books. We used to listen to Harry Potter. We listened to Harry Potter first, the whole series in English in the car, because in Houston it took like an hour to drive to school. And then we listened to the whole thing as well in Dutch. So we used to like listen. We chew through audiobooks because there'd be traffic on the way home, so it could be like 2.5 hours sitting in the car.
Jesus.
Yeah, my mom hated that because she was driving so much. Like, props to her. That was impressive. That was like annoying, having to get up that bit extra early for school in Houston. But yeah, we used to listen to so many books in the car. It was a great way to pass the time. And then one time, yeah, once we had a car accident because we were just, it wasn't our fault at all, but like I think if we hadn't been listening to the audiobook, I think my mum would have been also, or whatever, it doesn't matter, but we got hit by a bus. That was quite an interesting experience. But yeah, it was their fault. It was quite funny.
Where's your favorite place that you've lived?
Oh, Malaysia by far. I mean, I love Holland because it kind of feels like home, but Malaysia was just, I mean, insane. It's like the best place to grow up. We were literally living on a beach, and the beach had a playground on it and a boat club and like lots of really nice food and tennis courts, and it was in a rainforest. It was like dream place to grow up. And so much, we had so much freedom as kids. Like I was there for 4 years. So it was like from the age of 4 to 8. And we would just cycle around, go to school by ourselves on the bike. It was like a whole community. It was just amazing. And we had like Chinese New Year, and there were so many Dutch people that we had Sinterklaas celebrations on the beach every year, which was also my birthday, which is like, it was amazing. And we did like Halloween, and we did this thing called the fun run, where we ran around it was like a compound in the rainforest basically, or like lots of houses spread out in this sort of rainforest-ish area now. And it's really weird to think, because it's now a nature reserve. Like where I used to live is just forest now. It's no house. It's very strange.
I really want my audience to know why you're so bad at Smash Brothers.
Fuck you. Actually, I'm not bad. Leo's just an absolute baller at Smash.
Okay, they should know that as well. Sure. I'm really good at it. Yeah.
Yeah, Leo's actually insane at Smash Brothers.
On top of all
don't challenge the Smash Brothers.
On top of all the other things I'm annoyingly good at, and also I'm a nice guy, it pisses people off so badly.
Yeah,
so bad.
Especially, like when we were playing with Juan, and you kept just using that one power on him.
It's so annoying. It only made me do it more.
Every time he told you to stop it, it just would not work.
Yeah. I think he even switched into Spanish. He was getting so mad as well. Poder con la puta, poder.
Yeah. That's when you know he's mad.
Totally. I'm looking forward to that again. I hope we're not stuck in for too long.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Cheers for listening. Hope you enjoyed. As always, losingtheplotpodcast-at-gmail-dot-com if you'd like to tell me anything at all. And until next time, cheers.